Hello and welcome to the Outcast. I'm your host HC. With me is,
Wolf.
and today we also have a special guest, a good friend of mine. Introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Jaya. I'm a friend of HC's on Discord and also a proclaimed nerd.
And we're all here because a week late, but this caught everyone by surprise, so we're only getting to this now. But Chadwick Boseman, who most people know as the Black Panther from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, has passed away due to cancer last week. It was a very devastating thing to hear because no, I think we can all agree that nobody knew this was gonna happen. Nobody knew anything about this. So we are
Mhm.
here together to kind of share our memories, little as they are, or many as there are of Chadwick Boseman. Jaya, you're the guest. Why won't you start? When were you first introduced to Chadwick?
So it was from the movie 42. We have a family tradition of getting a DVD from Netflix and watching it on Fridays. And this movie introduced me to Chadwick, who played Jackie Robinson, and with Harrison Ford playing the baseball mogul that hires him to be the first black player in a mainly white institution. And the thing that struck me about this whole movie is that Jackie Robinson, as Boseman plays him, is obviously angry and worried about his situation. He's got a sense of righteousness about facing racism, but he's told that he's chosen because he can know when not to show that anger, when it would hurt him. And a scene that I shared with HC is when Jackie, as Boseman plays him, is heckled by a very racist baseball player that uses the N word. And so he goes into his locker room and smashes up a bat, and it's very intense. And obviously, no one gets hurt in it, only the bat does. But it struck me to the power of his performance that he could go from someone from just coolly glaring at a racist gas station attendant to expending all this energy in private and not on the baseball field. And of course, then Civil War came out, and I was very excited to see a T'Challa that was driven by revenge and by anger and grief.
So
And from
when he started playing Black Panther, you were aware of him. You knew that when you heard
mhm,
of the casting, you knew who he was.
mhm. Mind, I wasn't following up on the Civil War casting, so it was a pleasant surprise to see Chadwick Boseman in this. And he surprised me in the role because he could be very. He had once again showed a great range, and apparently the guy's a martial arts expert, so he did most of his own stunts in the Marvel movies and in 42, from what I've read.
Great, that's awesome. So this was your introduction. Wolf, what about you?
So my introduction to him was, Black Panther and Civil War and all of that, like the Marvel universe, right? I didn't know of him as an actor until then. So that was my introduction to him, and I'm kind of glad I had it because it did get me to go back and look up some of his other films a little bit at least, and I definitely want to go back and watch them fully, way more now, especially now and then before as well, because he definitely
So
gives a great performance as T'Challa and Black Panther, right? Like it's really great.
to me, like again, Marvel Universe. But what I remember about him is that I've heard like before the movie was even announced, there were because there was a Black Panther movie in development for a long time, like even before the MCU even started. There were a few attempts to get it going, and and what I remember is that 4 years ago to think when Kevin Feige announced the plans for Marvel's Phase 3 of the cinematic universe, it was then announced that they are going to make a Black Panther movie. This was when they announced that Chadwick Boseman was cast as the character, and he also went up on stage after they announced that Captain America 3 was going to be Civil War, and they actually brought him on stage. This was the first time I saw him where they just brought him to the stage and like Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr. tried to get him like, "Hey, you're on my side, right? You're on my side." And he's like, Black Panther is kind of his own guy. I don't want to get in between what's going on. I was like, I like this guy. I have no idea who he is, but I like him. I want to see him in these movies. And then Civil War came out, and holy shit,
Yeah,
the rest is history.
it's also worth mentioning, right? Like I didn't know that he had did a lot of his own stunts, right? And that just kind of pulls back into just how amazingly strong-willed as a person he is, right?
Yeah,
Because if you've ever been
Mhm.
around someone who's fighting cancer and going through that and dealing with all that, right? Like it
Mhm.
takes a lot of strength of will and perseverance to just get up and walk around and just do your normal day. I've seen
yeah,
someone go through that and then chemo on top of that at will. It drains you as a person. It really does.
Mhm.
To hear him playing, he was diagnosed in 2016, and to hear him playing all of the Marvel movies and so many other
yeah.
movies and things as well going on within his life, and to be battling cancer during all of that as well. Like you have to respect the strength of will, right? You have to. At the very least, you have to. So, it,
Indeed.
major props to him as a person, right? I have to give that.
Like a bit before this podcast, I rewatched Black Panther because that's the one movie of the Marvel Universe he was in that I kind of had watched the least for some reason. And like there are some fight choreography there that if he actually did most of his stunts, and according to reports, he actually did. He had to go through a lot, and to know he had cancer, and also he had to do a lot of screaming, which I can just imagine probably hurt his lungs in ways that we can't even imagine. Because this is a hard role to pull off when all the Wakanda Forever and all the notes and all of the announcements. He has such a powerful voice, and to think this is the voice of a person who was battling cancer and nobody knew. Like apparently, even Kevin Feige, the head of Marvel Studios, didn't know. Ryan Coogler, who wrote and directed Black Panther, didn't know. I think only his family knew, which is insane.
Hmm. It is insane.
Do you remember how you found out? I just happened to open Discord and somebody said it, and I was like, "What?"
Yeah. Evil
Same.
writer. So someone I follow on Tumblr was saying, "I'm really sad Chadwick Boseman died," and I was like, "What?" And I said, and I was thinking, is this a meme of something? Maybe saying someone, I'm sad he died, and it's referencing perhaps some sort of movie where someone's dead comes back, which is what T'Challa does several times during the Marvel universe.
Yeah,
But I,
every comic book character does this, honestly. But yeah, in the movie
yeah,
specifically, yes.
yeah. Well, yeah, Black Panther, he's nearly killed. He's put in the snow to lower his heart rate. Not to slower. What am I saying? To lower his heart rate. And then he's dusted in Infinity War. And after that, he comes back all chipper and happy. But it was
I'm not sure about the chipper and happy part, but yeah, because when he comes back, he's not that chipper. But I know what you mean.
well, he's not smiling, but he's just got this look of quiet resolution that he gives to Steve
Yeah,
that he's ready for round two. And it struck me about how well his acting range is that he didn't have to say a word in that scene, but you could tell exactly what he was thinking. But in any case, I found out and I was like, what? And I then Googled and I found out. And this was last Friday, I think, actually.
yeah, that was
And
last week.
right. And so I think I was a bit knocked down for the rest of the night when I realized, and I was kind of typing into several Discord channels, no, 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 this cannot be happening.
Yeah, I remember I also talked to you about this, and it was we were both like, how, when, why?
And the thing is, I've been through this before, not with colon cancer, but with a family member with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, my dad. And granted, I was an oblivious kid, but he had cancer in about 1995, 1996. He entered remission. And then when I was about 9 or 10, his cancer came back and he had to go to the hospital. But the thing is, everyone else in my family knew, but they didn't tell me, and they didn't tell my little brother. So I was just told he was sick, there was something wrong with his stomach. And so when he died, it was a bit of a shock to me. So Chadwick dying is like deja vu. And
Yikes.
and it's like, and I understand why he didn't tell anyone. because there are a lot of talks about if he could even tell anyone. Marvel may have known just for his chemotherapy and to schedule shoot filming, because if he's doing his own stunts and they trained for 3 months before Black Panther, then presumably they'd have to schedule it around chemotherapy. And it's not just a case of will, your body may not physically be able to do stuff like that after you've had chemo. I remember my dad, his hair fell out. He was kind of walking around the house before he had to go back to the hospital with a kind of a bit of a slow, like, calmness, but it was very eerie. And I remember that he would ask my mom to make buttermilk for him. And we normally didn't get buttermilk, but she did. So I could only imagine that might have been going on in Chadwick's last months, that he might have been trying to rest. And his
It
family was
could,
doing all to make him comfortable.
it could also be if he's anything like my father with chemo, he just outright doesn't do it. Which, because, I mean, chemo, my father was diagnosed, I think, with cancer, 2 years ago now, I think, or at least a year ago. He was diagnosed with cancer. I don't live with my father or anything like that, and I don't see him a whole lot since him and my mom are separated, all that, blah, blah, blah. Personal backstory. Anyways, but, but I do know he has it. I do know he also has colon cancer as well. That's what he was diagnosed with, and that's what he's going through, and gets, a lot with that, right? And chemo is the thing that he says is the worst. He says battling the cancer is honestly the nicer part. When you have to have the chemo, though, that's when it just absolutely knocks you down. But there are times where, for him, it's just, he still gets out, and works and wants to do other things and do a lot more than what he's able to do sometimes. And he has to just rest and stuff like that, especially after the chemo. But, again, in order to be able to work and continue on with his daily life, sometimes he will just outright say, yeah, nah, to the chemo, which is not good. Don't do that, but I do get where he's coming from in that regard, because taking the chemo, again, that's probably the thing that takes it out of you the most, right? That's the thing that just pulls you down.
Yeah, and I think my dad was definitely more exhausted after chemo. I'm sending good vibes for your dad, and that he recovers and enters a long remission.
Absolutely.
Yeah, same.
Thank you both. But yeah, I mean,
Good vibe.
Yeah.
we can all agree, fuck cancer, right? No matter who you are, no matter who has it, fuck cancer.
Yeah, I mean, and it's kind of weird, cancer. We think of it as a scary thing. Most kids' media doesn't talk about it. There's a Charlie Brown special where a girl in Charlie Brown and Linus's class gets a form of cancer called
yeah,
leukemia.
I remember that.
And it's actually quite educational, because when Charlie Brown and Linus go to visit her in the hospital, she explains the different processes that go into her diagnosis and treatment, not just chemotherapy, but also blood tests and getting to a bone marrow sampling, and also talking about how she's going to work to get better, but there also isn't a guarantee. I mean, obviously it's a kid's show, so they show her in remission.
I remember this. I know what you're talking about. I don't have a personal experience with, with a family member to share, but I know what you're talking about here.
And I think it's a scary thing, cancer. Cells at Work has a more sympathetic view of it, the anime, where it shows the human body as anime characters. And cancer cells are portrayed as cells that can't help being copied wrong. And they're hunted down as children and as adults. And it's a case of where you can see where they're coming from, but I could also see why it would offend people who've had cancer, who are cancer survivors, or had friends who have battled cancer. Because obviously tragic villains with complex layers are good. And the performance in both the Japanese and English is very poignant for Cancer Cell. But it's also like, this is the same thing that kills people, and it just so happens to be in this anime that this cancer cell is routed before it can get any farther. So it's interesting, in a kind of morbid way, how it's characterized in media.
Yeah. But, I think when it came to Chadwick, the reason, I think one of the things that I think struck people about that cancer is that you can sometimes not even tell if someone really has it. The,
No.
in regards to this specific thing because a lot of people who were close to him didn't know. And how can you know? How can you even figure out on a person when he's doing the stunts like you see in the movies? This so just again mind blowing that he was even able to do half this stuff. And this is not,
And
and this is more praising him for how he handled this. Like just holy shit, what a strong person he was.
But moving away from cancer, if we're all done with that,
Yeah,
let's talk a bit about Black Panther
sorry.
specifically. Oh no, go ahead. If there's anything you
I
want to say.
mean, and that's the thing. I mean, I was thinking about the fact that after he died, all the YouTube videos that featured Chadwick Boseman in various media are people paying homage to him. And I've looked at him in, say, The Daily Show and in SNL, and I've just realized something. He's really skinny in those. And I guess maybe it's because we're all searching for answers. As HC says, there's no way we could know. But I'm wondering if maybe the signs were there and we didn't see them because we just assumed he's this paragon and on a pedestal and not realizing it. And I think that's what I've been seeing most after the death is people are searching for the why and why this happened and if this could have been prevented. And he was diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer, which
yeah.
then
From what I've heard, he was diagnosed with a level 3, and as the years went by, it raised to level 4.
mm,
But moving away from this for a bit, I did something I did want to say. In terms of things that he contributed, while he was here, and in terms of an impact, one thing that kind of stands out for me personally is that he's cast as this character who, to be honest, before the Black Panther movie and Civil War, Black Panther wasn't really one of the most well-known superheroes. Am I correct to assume this?
we can double check it, but I think probably if he was well known in the comics and maybe in some
Yeah,
animated shows, but he wasn't given as much of a role in the mainstream because, Hollywood doesn't want black people to start in the
yeah,
movies
that's
there.
what, but I'm sure that comic book readers knew who he was. I'm sure that probably appeared in one of the Avengers shows. I'm not, but it wasn't like not nowadays. If you look in the street and you say Black Panther, people would know what you're talking about. Back when the movie was announced or when Civil War came out, nobody really knew who it was. Like I just knew from a podcast I listened to that he was a king. That's all I knew. Anything else, no idea. So, and the thing is that you suddenly go into this movie who has Captain America's name on it, and you're introduced. We are basically introduced to new two characters to that universe in that movie, Black Panther and my boy Spider Man. But the thing is
Mm,
that Spider-Man is well established in the pop culture world by that point, and he also had two cinematic versions of him before that. Black Panther, this was his first
mm,
debut, and then
mhm.
you get into the solo movies. Spider-Man had Spider-Man: Homecoming a year after. Black Panther had his own movie 2 years after, and people were so convinced by his small role, by Chadwick's small role and performance in Civil War, that all of a sudden Black Panther, a character that nobody really knows about, went ahead and grossed $1 billion at the box office, while Spider-Man didn't even scratch $1 billion. And then you also have the fact that Black Panther came out a few months after Justice League, which has Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman in it. Three of their most well-known superheroes, and he beat those didn't even make 700 million, and Black Panther made $1 billion. So what he did, he did something so that people saw him for just a few minutes and said, "We want to see a full movie about this guy. We want to see him in the as the main character." That's impressive. That's honestly kind of mind blowing.
I think right. It is a little unfair to say Black Panther's success is all due to him, right? Like,
no. It's not just due to
but
him.
I
There are a
do
lot
get
of
where you're coming
factors.
from, right? Like Black Panther, its success very much speaks to the fact that people do want, an all black cast or mostly black cast led movie with, the main characters and the top billing characters being, black characters, especially black female characters who are just absolute badasses. Shuri's my girl. I love her.
Yeah, sure is the best.
I love her sass.
Yes, I love Sherry.
But I mean, again, like
Me
there's
too.
so many
Disney
strong
princess?
characters
No,
within this
not
movie,
really.
and there's just so many strong characters within this movie that are just great characters to sit back and watch.
Mhm.
And again, like it touched a culture. This movie I think will be seen as very much so a cultural touchstone, right, for many years to
It
come for
only is seen as that.
within the superhero film genre as well as just general I guess black film genre, right? Like looking at stuff like that, like it's going to be a cultural touchstone for them because it touched so many people from across the world, right? Which is just amazing. And
Yeah.
props to everyone who worked on this and brought
Yeah,
these
props
characters
to
to life.
everyone. I'm not saying that there is a lot of talent that was involved in the making of this movie. I'm not saying that, but you need to understand that people don't know what's going on behind the scenes.
Oh,
They
sure,
know
sure, sure.
what's going on in front of the camera. So when they saw the guy from Captain America: Civil War who appeared for a few scenes as a supporting character get his own movie, and they were like, "We want to see that," to the point it crossed $1 billion on this hero that nobody really knew before that. That goes to him a lot of the time because you don't really know how a movie is gonna turn out and how much of a hard work they put into it until you see it.
Mhm.
So when you see his face on a poster and you're like, I want to see that because I liked him in that other movie, that means something.
Agreed. The other thing that Black Panther did that was very good was they took the problematic parts of the comics and reimagined them. Like Nakia and Mbaku are originally villains in the comics. And Mbaku is actually pretty racist. It's a character called Man Ape, which is why the Jabari tribe worships Hanuman and not Bast, and why he has a gorilla mask. And obviously, they couldn't have that, especially him being a poacher. So they took all that up. They made Mbaku very reasonable, actually, and honorable. And saying to top it all off, his family is all vegetarians, despite him being a giant troll. And Nakia originally was supposed to be T'Challa's Catwoman. Apparently, he turned her down, and she became a villain. Here in the movie, the roles are reversed.
Yeah, I was about to say they kind of switched it around in the movie, but something. Actually, Jaya, because you said you know more of the comics, I heard that apparently in the comics we never really go into T'Challa's coronation. He's just a king for a while when we meet him in the comics, and the entire him stepping up into the role of a king is something they made for the movie. Is this true? Is this like an adaptation of a certain story?
I can double check on that because the comics are about 50 years old when they first appeared. But apparently his father died around the time of World War II, where he teamed up with Captain America, according to Wikipedia at least. So I'm not sure about the coronation itself, but I can say M'Baku apparently was a big cheater whenever he was there.
Okay.
And so Black Panther's father teamed up with Captain America apparently in the comics, which is during World War II. T'Chaka, yeah. Which is actually pretty cool considering how flawed T'Chaka is in the films. That he's willing to work with other heroes to help the world become better. Whereas movie T'Chaka is isolated and a bit traditionalist to a fault. So I'm trying to see. So apparently his uncle was going to be the first Black Panther, who obviously doesn't appear in the film. N'Jobu is not in this original version of the comics. But after his father died, he decided to go on a quest to earn the Black Panther title honorably. And to earn that title from his uncle, which is actually pretty cool.
Okay,
Though
that's
also in
interesting.
though also in the comics, the Dora Milaje were originally his wives as well as his bodyguards. So I am glad they removed that.
Mhm. Wolf, what do you have any experience with the Black Panther comics?
No, I do not.
Okay,
I don't have a lot of experience with any of the comics. I'm not
okay,
a huge comic person, I will admit. I've only recently started getting somewhat more into them.
it's fair. Like same here, like, and also if I happen to read a comic with a Black Panther in it, it was a crossover with something, and like he did crossover with my boy Spidey, and I was happy to see that. So always cool. And I don't know, put him in the new Avengers game that came out. That could be awesome. But one thing I did want to say about Black Panther, though, as Chadwick played him, and that I found a really interesting journey because when we first see him, we see him lose his father, T'Chaka, and
Mm-hmm.
he takes and he's about to take over as king, but when we first see him in the suit, he's fueled by revenge. He wants to kill Bucky for killing his father, also he believed.
Mm-hmm.
But by
Mm-hmm.
the end, this is the only reason he's on Iron Man's team. He's basically on the no Bucky side in that movie. But then at the end,
Mm-hmm.
when he finds out that it was actually not Bucky, but Zemo who was responsible for his father's death, he's actually. They have this scene where they talk about it, and T'Challa actually says, they are fueled by revenge. I am not gonna let revenge take control of me as well. And as for a supporting character, he goes through a very big arc of not of looking past the need for revenge, looking past the need for just put the bad guy where he needs to be, and you don't need and not kill him. Just that he'll suffer enough for his consequences by even not dying because he arrests
Mm-hmm.
Zemo and they take him from there. And then when it comes to his own movie, he learns at some point that his father actually did let revenge get the best of him when he killed his own brother who betrayed Wakanda, and he's actually coming to terms, and he needs to come to terms with that, and that he realized his father may have not been right, and he actually kind of exposes Wakanda to the other world, which is what the villain wanted to do. Use the Wakandian technology for the rest of the world. And this was a very interesting character journey, like in general, not just for this character. And Chadwick pulls it off very well. Also, in terms of that, when you look at it, like Jaya said before, you look at his face, and even if he's not even if he doesn't use a lot of emotions on his face, you can tell what he's feeling. And there's something about his voice that's both calming but also royal. Like you'll follow this man into battle. You know what this guy is thinking. So props
Mm-hmm.
to him, really.
Yeah.
Even if I need to see him in more movies, but holy shit.
Agreed. And I think what's interesting in Civil War is he learns Bucky was framed before he goes to Siberia, but he's still following Tony quietly because he knows Tony's not going there for revenge, but to ostensibly save the world. So it's
Yep.
interesting how he goes off to corner Zemo on his own, knowing he's the one who truly killed his father.
Mhm.
But then they have a conversation because is not going to fight back. He's virtually defenseless, and he's turning Iron Man against Bucky and Cap. And so, what I find interesting is that T'Challa actually stops and has a conversation with him instead of speaking to the same mic, telling them all to stand down, that Zemo's manipulating them, or going down personally to interfere. But and by the time it's well in the throes of it, T'Challa realizes he can't stop the three of them because Iron Man's out to kill, like he was. So he decides instead to catch Zemo, but to grant him the mercy of death. But it's interesting compared to Eric in Black Panther, because it's an interesting idea to think, what if Eric had been spared and imprisoned if he had been given a pardon, say, for Infinity War? But the way it is T'Challa fatally stabs him, takes him up to see the sunset as he wishes, and offers to heal him. But when Eric refuses and asks to be buried in the ocean, T'Challa lets him. It's interesting how he makes sure Zemo's turned in, but Eric chooses his sentence of death because he won't yield, and because he basically caused Wakanda to self-destruct.
Yeah. Wolf, got anything to say on the matter?
I mean, it's interesting for Black Panther a lot because there isn't no completely straight villain in the movie, right? They do play Killmonger as kind of the quote unquote villain, but it's interesting because
He's an antagonist, but not necessarily a villain.
Antagonist is a good word for it, I would say, because there is this sense of you don't like the way he's doing things, but you do agree with where he's coming from in a way, right? Like, there is people suffering, there is, a lot going on that Wakanda could help with, that Wakanda could make a difference for. If Wakanda was there, if Wakanda wasn't so isolationist and just standing back watching and sending people out to just keep track of things, but instead actively trying to do something within the world, right? There's this sense of maybe that wouldn't have happened with Killmonger. Maybe he wouldn't have lived the life that he lived, right? So again, it's very interesting that, I think Chadwick Boseman himself, right, like said in a few different interviews, like that there was this that no one gets their kind of redemption moment, right? Like no one's kind of fully redeemed within this movie. No one is, what's the word I'm looking for? Don't know it.
Completely right.
Yeah, no one is completely right. Yeah, that works. No one is completely right by the end of this film, right? Like you always, you see everyone change within the film to some description.
It's like,
and what's interesting,
people.
Yeah. What's interesting is that Eric would have been abandoned regardless if his father had been killed or not. It's what you realize when rewatching the film. T'Chaka's telling his brother to come home alone. And if you read extra material, apparently he was going to bust Eric's mother out of jail then, just before his brother intervened. So essentially he was being asked to abandon his son, which is like not cool, man, because if that had because we all know Najoba was not going to do that, which is why he attacked Zuri, because he'd rather die than willingly abandon his own child, whose mother is in jail, later dies in jail, and becomes an orphan. And I mean, there's lots of fic potential with Eric, what kind of person he would have been, as you said, if, say, his mother had been out of prison, if he had been taken to Wakanda, or what would have happened if he hadn't been recruited as a special ops coup expert.
There is a lot of potential in there. But since we talked a lot about Civil War and Black Panther, one thing I do want to point out, because he was also a part of the last two Avengers movies, Infinity War and Endgame. And by the way, they survive in Endgame, and the movie is over a year old. We can say that now, but it's also the highest grossing movie of all time. So people have seen it. I'm willing to bet. But the thing about it is that Black Panther ends with him basically opening Wakanda to the rest of the world, like they were talking about throughout the movie. Let Wakanda be a part of this world. Let the Wakandian stuff be, help people, and then in Infinity War, there's the point where Okoge says, when you said we're gonna open Wakanda to the rest of the world, this is not what I had in mind. And then when he asked her what he thought he was going to do, she says probably the Olympics. And it's like, you know what? I would like to see the Olympics in Wakanda. Am I the only one? I would like to see that.
She also says she wants Starbucks. How do you think a Wakandan Starbucks would look like?
The cups would have to be made of vibranium. That's one.
That's probably dangerous somehow, I'm sure.
Imagine a fight scene, though, in a Wakanda Starbucks.
You know
Shuri.
what? You know what? Ryan Coogler, if you're listening to this, Black Panther 2, a fight in a Wakandian Starbucks, give it to us. We're there.
Maybe it could be about Shuri opening the Olympics and a Starbucks to honor her brother's wish. Since there are theories that Shuri might become the next Black Panther.
Yeah, we'll talk about it in a bit. But since we're kind of going onto this, I'm assuming have you guys seen the Avengers movies in theaters?
No, I did not see it in the theaters.
Yes.
So, Jaya, this is mostly for you. When T'Challa appeared in either Infinity War or Endgame, were there people cheering in the theater you went to?
Oh, yes. In Endgame, more so than Infinity War, because, it's been 5 years. T'Challa was dusted, leaving Okoye and Mbaku alive, and Nakia, apparently. And so we see Hulk doing the snap, but we don't see any one of the Avengers returning until Thanos invades with his army. Then the light opens up of Doctor Strange's portals, and you see T'Challa, Shuri, and Okoye walking in. And I remember this. The whole theater started applauding and didn't really stop during that whole time all the other Avengers came out. But yes, there was
same here, but the thing is that I have a personal story because we're talking about Chadwick specifically. But so I went to see Endgame on opening day. All the nerds were there, and I'm among them. I have no shame in admitting I was cheering myself. But the thing is that in Hebrew we kind of have this phrase where you want to say someone is awesome or amazing or something. Then if it's a guy, then you say like, you are a king. If it's a girl, you say you're a queen, and so, just to say how much you look up to a person, how much you adore a person. And then this scene happens, and the portal opens, and you see T'Challa, Okoye, and Shuri walking out. And there was a guy, a row or two behind me, going, "T'Challa, you king!" And for one, there was a guy who actually said that about him, and second, he's actually a king. So how feeling. But yeah, that was one of my favorite moments in a theater ever. Just hearing that guy going to T'Challa, you king! It was awesome.
You nerds.
That is also awesome.
Actually, speaking of which, there was another thing that a friend of mine got free tickets to see the Teen Titans Go movie, and it was also it was actually fun. It was actually a good movie, but whatever. It was free. We went. So, and this was also like kind of a special invitation for this was also the screening that critics got to see and stuff. So we got like the big theater, and there were a lot of people there. Like so many people. When they opened the doors, there were like people rushing in, and everyone started screaming something that's related to the Teen Titans. And I'm just turning to a friend of mine, to my friend that was there, and I tell him, "Wakanda forever." No, wait, wrong franchise. But the thing is, someone heard me, and he started yelling, "Yo, Wakanda forever!" And then somebody heard him, and before you know it, everyone was just starting yelling Wakanda forever as they went into that theater. It felt like a freaking rebellion, but I don't care. Wakanda forever. Yep, we are nerds. But it was a pretty badass moment, if I can say. I thank you, Black Panther, for giving us that phrase. It was awesome.
Agreed.
So I think we anything else you want to say about personal experiences with these movies or something you've seen of him that stood out to you?
Not personally, but considering the public response, like when you see a bunch of little kids dressed as the Dora Milaje, it's really inspiring. And there was even a meme that several kids in a trench coat tried to pose as an adult to get into the theater. So it's quite amazing, the impact. And I think one of the night show hosts did a video where a bunch of Black Panther fans who were all Black talked to a poster of T'Challa, only for Chadwick Boseman to come out and respond to them.
Oh, wow.
And one guy even admitted that he bootlegged watching Black Panther twice after seeing it in movies twice. And Boseman came out and said, You're gonna bootleg my movie? They both have a laugh about it. It's more the impact it had, how it's changed things in the sense that we have a movie that isn't about slavery, which, fair. Like Django, 12 Years a Slave are good movies, but they're also very painful to watch. They're angsty, and they talk about a very unpleasant chapter in US history that a bunch of people seem to forget. But it's nice to have a movie that isn't relegated to that.
Or don't want to remember.
About the potential. Right. I mean, and you could say Get Out is a horror movie for Black people, but Black Panther is the superhero movie.
Yeah.
Because
and everyone needs a superhero. Everyone needs a superhero.
We all do. And I mean, T'Challa is a pretty good one, as well as Shuri and M'Baku. I'm always going to be Team M'Baku on this because he's my favorite character from the movie.
Oh, he's lovely. I love him. Like, I love the moment of him. Everyone's kind of having that coming together moment. Like, yeah, we're here for you. And he's just in the background. This is very nice. But it's getting old. I'm done with it. Let's move on. Like, I love him. He's great. I just, again, also his sass. I love his sass. Like his and Shuri's
Yeah,
sass.
vegetarian.
On that note, something that I didn't forget to mention, Black Panther is the second time the Marvel Cinematic Universe saved an actor that played the Human Torch in a terrible movie.
I think we can forgive him. From what I saw in it, he was probably one of the best parts in it.
Yeah, like let's say the problems of the Fantastic Four reboot weren't on him. There was a lot more wrong with it than the actor.
Fair.
Look forward to our Fantastic Four podcast coming, maybe never, I don't know. But the thing is, again, about this entire one, I think we can kind of move on to, as we know, there's going to be a Black Panther sequel. And, one of the main things that was interesting to me about it is that the director said that in the second one, he wanted to see T'Challa grow more as a king, because, again, in the comics, he's apparently been king for years, and we could see him growing more into the role in a sequel. So, but now with Chadwick sadly passing, what do you think they're gonna do in a second one? Like, kind of what? You know what? Let's ask first. What do you want to see?
Good question.
Okay, so if
Sure.
you guys. Okay, yeah, I was about to say, if someone needs to take over the Black Panther mantle, I want Shuri to be the one.
Okay.
I think it also happens in the comics or something.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Shuri is Black Panther and honoring her brother, because we know she'd be good at it. She's not an action girl in the sense that she can hold her own weight in a fight, but an opponent can easily overpower her. But she's smart. She's got good self-defense when the occasion arises. And she has the compassion. She saves people if they need her. And she's a nice troll. Plus, it'd be very sweet to have T'Challa's little sister take up the reins and carry on his legacy. Of course, another option is, my theory is that in Endgame, M'Baku was the king during the 5-year time skip on Wakanda, because logically speaking, he's probably the most athletic of the tribal leaders, meaning he could win anything that they toss at him at the coronation. But he's also very compassionate, and he knows how to rule in a crisis. And obviously it's a hollow victory because he only wanted to be king to challenge T'Challa, not because he wanted to rule. And you could tell he was very relieved when T'Challa and Shuri were brought back from the dead, along with his tribesmen. So another option is M'Baku and Shuri co-ruling in T'Challa's memory, knowing this time it's permanent. Which could be interesting, because M'Baku thinks that Shuri is a child, and Shuri thinks that M'Baku is a troll. So it'd be interesting to see them working together.
Yeah. That's actually something. Is that ever been confirmed that he was dusted in Infinity War? Because people were kind of sure that Shuri wasn't dusted, but the movie they kind of does tell that she did. So
M'Baku was not dusted because there's a scene during the dusting where he's looking his tribesmen disappearing, and he's got an anguish.
Yes, you're right. Okay. So Yeah, that could be interesting. But the thing is, we say that we kind of want Shuri to be the next Black Panther, but what are they gonna do with T'Challa's character? They can't just write him off. So, what do you think
They
they're
could
gonna?
just, I mean, the best solution would just be to say he died. Just say he died and not go into the details. Maybe have like a video homage to him, a bunch of pictures of T'Challa, perhaps Shuri with a shrine for him.
Somebody did mention that since the Black Panther suit has to be CG'd anyway into action sequences, and they do have a model ready, then maybe they'll just open in an action sequence where he dies, and they'll just use, um, like archive recordings to for voice clips or stuff, and like open the movie with him dying, and then have Shuri take over.
Mm, right. They probably would have to CG in Chadwick Boseman if anyone goes to the spirit realm after taking the heart herb, because Shuri is part of the ritual. Well, I guess there is no more heart herb, but they could regrow it. I mean, Wakanda maybe has seed banks or a means of recreating it. So
They
they
probably
could,
would because they need to keep that tradition going that the next Black Panther could come.
right. I mean, it depends because if they show a spirit world theme, T'Challa has to be there because he's been a king for several years. But presumably, they could do like what they did with Carrie Fisher in Rogue One. They could CGI Chadwick Boseman in just to talk to his little sister, and it could be a short scene. It could be tasteful, and it could allow everyone, sure, not just Sherry, but also the audience, to say goodbye to T'Challa.
Yeah, that could work. Wolf, what do you think?
So that's actually really interesting, right? Like I wasn't creative enough, and I hadn't even really thought about saying, "Hey, carry on with Shuri as Black Panther and the Queen of Wakanda" at that point, which would be really interesting and really enjoyable to see, right? That hadn't occurred to me, right? Because I had seen people talking about, oh, they shouldn't make a Black Panther 2. That would ruin Chadwick Boseman's legacy as this character because he's the one who brought this character to life, right? And my thought on that was when I saw that was, well, no, right? I think you can still make a Black Panther 2 and carry on without Chadwick Boseman and not hurt, his legacy as this character, right? Absolutely, he's the one who brought Black Panther to the big screen. He's the one who brought this character to life. He's the one who, he was the first Black Panther. He was honestly the first black superhero in film, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Mm.
So,
Unless you can't steal, but
true.
no.
But again, the point is though,
Well,
like he was one of the first and one of the big blockbuster hits
He
from a
was the big
major
one.
Hollywood
Let's
studio,
say this.
right?
He was the big one.
This wasn't some B movie or anything like that. Like this was a major motion picture from a major blockbuster studio, right? Like this was new, more or less, right?
mhm.
For a black superhero, especially. And
Right.
he's the one who brought all of that to life, right? So I get the idea of wanting to honor his memory and not replace him as Black Panther and maybe not
No,
make a second Black
let's say this
Panther.
right now. I think if I think even Kevin Feige and everyone at Marvel knows that if they recast him, this is gonna be the biggest mistake they'll ever make.
I don't think so.
Nobody.
Yeah,
I disagree. I think
right.
if they want to continue on, right, I think the best thing they can do is recast him. I don't think you can, again, like there is no, you can't live up to Chadwick Boseman, right? You can't play Chadwick Boseman playing Black Panther and T'Challa. That can't be done. So you recast him, and this new actor plays Black Panther and T'Challa in their own unique way. Look at Spider-Man. You have your different eras of Spider-Man, right? You have the Tobey
Yeah,
Maguire, the
but at the
Sam
same time,
Raimi,
with
and the Tom
Spider-Man,
Hiddleston
Tom Holland is
or
different
Tom
than Andrew
Holland. But
Garfield,
again,
who's
that's the point.
was
That's the point. Be different. You're not playing, Chadwick Boseman. You're playing
yeah. But if
T'Challa
it's
and Black
but
Panther.
if it's a sequel,
Again,
if a
who
sequel in
cares?
the same year,
I think, right, Black Panther is a
Mhm.
mantle. The character, the role, the hero. Black Panther is a mantle that's meant to be passed down. That's meant to be that is meant to go from generation to generation. Why not do that with the actors as well? Chadwick Boseman has passed. Pass that torch on to someone new and let them give their own unique spin and opportunity on T'Challa and Black Panther. Will it be as good? Maybe, maybe not. Who knows? We'd have to see the movie. But I don't think we should come into it immediately saying, I don't think we should say, oh, let's not do that because it may not be as good or it would be different. Well, I mean, again,
Mm.
I think that's the point. You want it to be different. You don't want it to be the same. And you want to do this because to have this cultural touchstone of a movie and say, well, he died, so now no more. It's like, I feel like you have this amazing opportunity and this amazing thing for so many different people and how it touched them to then say we're making no more of those because it wouldn't be it would ruin Chadwick Boseman's legacy. It would ruin it would do him a dishonor or something like that. I feel like in people's rush to honor him and his legacy and his memory, I feel like they're making a mistake when they say don't recast him, don't make a second movie. But I will say, right, I get where they're coming from. I understand what they want to do and where they're coming from in that regard. But I think either recasting him with a completely new person or taking the route of, he did die in universe and it's Shuri who takes over would also be an amazing way to, move forward and do something truly unique and different. Right.
I think out of the two options, Shuri taking over is the one people would be less mad about, I think.
I definitely agree. I think people would be less worried, less
Although let's
cautious,
say
less
even
mad.
although I will say even if they do go with the Shuri route, there will no matter I think no matter what route they choose, there would be someone who says this isn't honoring him to the best way possible.
Oh
There
yeah, I
would
mean,
always
there's always going to be
there
someone who gets angry. Absolutely.
yeah. So but I
Well,
think
okay.
but I think if the two options are, recast T'Challa or just put Rule in the Shuri in the Black Panther role, the second option is the one I personally prefer.
That's fair. Again,
So
that's
who would
completely
you
fair.
choose to recast?
I'm
But
not the
who would you
person.
choose to recast?
Eey.
Like, because there are options, like people want John Boyega to star in a Black Panther film. He said he hadn't considered it because he was worried his star power would take away from the performance of other actors. But there are lots of options for who could play T'Challa. There's Donald Glover, who's about the same age. There's John Boyega.
This would actually be interesting because Donald Glover is technically in the MCU. He is, Miles Morales' uncle in Spider-Man: Homecoming. So that'll be interesting.
Who's Morales?
Miles. Yeah.
No, I'm joking. It's from Into the
Yeah.
Spider-Verse when he says really dumb. Who's Morales? Not that dumb.
Oh yeah, I just realized. Yeah, Into the Spider-Verse is an awesome movie. Go watch it now. But
It's on Netflix, people. So, but
yeah,
it,
I think okay. So originally, the Black Panther movie that was supposed to happen was with Wesley Snipes playing the character and also directing or producing. I think. Do you think he can do it now?
if he has no more tax problems, maybe. So
Okay,
I mean,
so
he would T'Challa.
okay. I'm trying to think if there's anyone now. So I
mean,
wanted to say to say Sterling K. Brown, but the thing is he was already in the movie. He was the uncle.
How about Michael B. Jordan though? If he's playing T'Challa after playing Killmonger, it'd be a kind of meta thing.
You know something? I think that would be one of those casting choices that people would like, but they won't be sure why they like it.
Yeah. I mean, we all agree Michael B. Jordan would be a great T'Challa because
yeah.
he gave such an emotive performance as Killmonger.
He's
But
an
it would
awesome
just be
actor.
weird. It would just be very weird to have him as T'Challa because he was trying to kill T'Challa in the first movie. But I'm thinking who else? Lakeith Stanfield, maybe. He was in Get Out playing one of the characters, and he's also the police inspector in Knives Out. So he's a very good actor. I haven't seen him in many physical roles, but maybe he could be one. He was also in the bad Netflix movie Death Note, and from what I hear, he's the only decent part of it.
That wasn't bad.
then-
That was wonderful. I will defend the Netflix anime adaptations. I love them to death. They're so bad. They're
Okay,
good.
Jaya, this is something you need to know about Wolf. You don't agree with anything he says.
I am so mad at the Netflix version of Death Note.
Oh, it's terrible, but I kind of still love it.
It's also kind of racist. They made everyone white.
Oh yeah,
in it.
it's bad. It's very bad.
Why is William Dafoe the demon? I don't get it.
It's so bad.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, but anyway. But Lakeith Stanfield would probably be a good T'Challa if he could do the stunts.
I'm trying to say no actors come to mind at the moment. This is something I needed to think before we did this. But
Maybe the guy who played Thresh in the Hunger Games. Let me look up who played
yeah,
Thresh.
you know what? Yeah, I don't remember the guy's name, but now that you said, yeah, he could do it.
Dayo Okuni, and I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing this, viewers. Feel free to lambast me. But he's very good at physical stunts, as we saw in the Hunger Games. He's definitely the right age, and he could play a very good T'Challa. 1988 guy.
Something in me wanted to say the guy who voiced Drago in How to Train Your Dragon 2.
I-
But the
I-
thing is,
Dimon
Raimon
Hansu.
Hansu?
yeah, but the thing is, I remember now, he's also in the MCU. He was in Guardians of the Galaxy. Damn it.
Who did he play?
The guy, one of the
He
guys at the
plays
beginning,
Korath the Pursuer.
yeah. The guy at the beginning who Star-Lord tells them, I'm Star-Lord, and he goes, who? That's him.
I mean, couldn't they just hand wave it, just put new makeup on him? Because the Guardians have technically left Wakanda.
Yeah.
So it shouldn't be an issue if this guy looks familiar. The other issue is that he's 56. So
Yeah, he's a bit older
that
for the
might be a
role.
bigger issue. He would be a good T'Challa. He'd probably be better at the emotional part of it and that. But that isn't. Oh, he was also in Captain Marvel as well, playing the same character.
Oh, that's nice.
So that's another option.
There are,
It would be
and you know what the funny thing would be, that if they would actually recast T'Challa, they would suddenly bring an actor we didn't even think about in this podcast, and we will be like, the hell? Who is this guy?
I think, right,
Yeah.
if they don't go with someone with, a lot of star power, right, they probably should go with someone who's a bit newer to
Yeah,
the scene,
that's something I
who
want to
doesn't
say.
have
If
as much
they
of a
are
name
going to
right
do
now.
this, go with with a no one, or someone who's just rising up, not a big star.
right, who's in the I'm thinking because Chris Jackson probably wouldn't be good for the role because he's just so darn nice. He plays General Washington in Hamilton in the OBC. And the thing is, while he's good at playing a stern general, when you see him off camera, he's just so genial and friendly and sweet. And obviously T'Challa is all those things, but he's not a teddy bear. He's a panther with claws. It would be cool if Chris Jackson could do it. But I have a feeling we just all want to cuddle him instead of seeing him as a giant panther.
Who said you can't cuddle a panther, though?
The panther, when he eats
Maybe
you.
when they're a baby and learning to swim, but maybe not when they're an adult.
Good point. Sorry, bestie, you can't have a panther in your house. I'm so sorry. She would if she could, but that's another story. Okay, I think we pretty much covered everything we had to say about Chadwick Boseman, unless you want to add anything.
I don't think so.
But I guess that's all for this episode of the Outcast. We hope you enjoyed. What are your thoughts about Chadwick Boseman's passing, and what was your favorite role of his, favorite movie? What do you think they should do with a Black Panther 2 now that he's gone? You can tell us all about it in the comment section below, on our Tumblr, which is Bellcast Team, on our Twitter, which is Bellcast with a capital B, capital C. And until our next podcast, I was HC.
I was Wolf.
All
Jaya,
right, and I'm Jaya.
and we will talk to you all next time. Take care.
Bye bye.